Thank you for tuning into Bethel, BHG TV. Like, share, and subscribe. Now our host, Pastor Johnson.
All right, brothers and sisters, welcome in our chat room. Sister Barbara Benton, Brother Landon Paul, our first moderator, Brother Scott and Sister Erica from Alaska in the house, Sister Marie in the building, Brother Brian Johnson, my brother from another mother, one of our moderators in the house. All right, brothers and sisters, let's get this thing going. Let's rock it. Let's rock it. Let's rock it. Let's rock it. Thank you for coming in. Happy, as they say, the sun is down. Happy Wednesday. It's another day. How you doing, Sister Kelly Ming? Thank you for coming in. Right now, brothers and sisters, we are going to be embarking on something very, very special. This month, we'll start the Black History Month 5-part series titled Black History According to the Prophets. And it's phenomenal. I'm inviting preachers, pastors, I'm inviting co-workers, people that I meet. I'm inviting them to come to the Bethel class to hear this lesson that's going to be brought on by Pastor Boyd. Shout out to Brother Quentin and Sister Brenda Beauclair in the house. Sister Kelly, I got some information coming for you all so that you can get over to the New Jersey class. Brother Mark P. is going to be calling Brother Canson in the next day or so, because this first series that's coming up is going to be awesome. And if you all can get over there to New Jersey, I think it's about maybe a 45 minute from where you all are. And there are a lot of people coming over from New York. Shout out to Brother Mark P., Brother Santana, Sister Adalia, that comes over from New York. So that New Jersey class, shout out to New Jersey. I met Sister Susan H. Sister Susan H. is over there. These are individuals that I met years ago before the New Jersey class got started, and they are there. When I went to go teach in New Jersey, it was just awesome to see that the work we put in up in that area, that these brothers and sisters are over there in the New Jersey class. It was just awesome to see that happening. So it's awesome. It's awesome. So it's Black History Month, and a lot of things are going on in society that is just mind-boggling. Before we get started tonight, as we always do, let's start off with our scripture that we like to bring out. Where's my Bible at here? That's not my Bible. I'm looking for my Bible, and this might be something else, but it's certainly not my scriptures. So let me take this away, and I can't find out why my scripture isn't showing up here. It should be right here. Let me take a look at this real quick to find out what's going on. Uh, I don't understand that one. So let me just give the scripture out. It's in Psalms 111, verse 10. Psalms 111, verse 10. And I have to set up my Bible later. But before I get to talking, I want to get the scripture out, as we always do. And it says, "For the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all they that do his commandments. His praise endureth forever." All right. Black history. Let me tell you, people have no idea where history begins. And in the state of Florida, there's a lot of controversy regarding the fact that the governor has restricted certain levels of teachings dealing with African American history. He's put it out that these are restrictions at what they call the advanced level. And so some people say, you know what? I'm glad the governor did that, because we need to be teaching our own children, and they need to get it from our perspective. And they need to understand that we need to show them what Harriet Tubman done, and what Sojourner Truth did, and what Malcolm and Martin and Marcus and all of those brothers did, and how they contributed to our history. Well, I got news for you. You better roll that thing back. You better roll it back. The problem is people don't know to roll it back. And this is why we are letting everybody know that this weekend there's going to be a 5-part series in all of the Israel of Gods. No matter what location, you can go on, you go to the israelofgod.com and you find a location near you. And you need to get there, especially on the first lesson. It's dealing with color. And if you think that your history is going to go to the days of when slavery started here in the United States, no, we are going to roll that thing way back. And shout out to Pastor Bowie for the lesson he is going to be putting together, titled Black History According to the Prophets. I shared this with somebody, and they says, "What prophets? Which prophets?" And the Bible prophets. Wow, you mean yes, the Bible prophets. The prophets in the scriptures. A lot of people don't know that your history, Black history, goes way back. You better open up the Bible that's been sitting on grandmama's table. Blow it off. Get the dust off of it. It's not a furniture piece. It's not a figurine on the table. There's information in there that is very vital to your history. And it's biblical history told by the prophets. So you want to be a part of this 5-part series, especially the first one. After you watch the first one, you will be intrigued to continue to watch them throughout their duration, brothers and sisters. So I'm inviting a lot of people. I'm inviting scholars. You have no idea the amount of people that we are bringing to the table to get some of this information. I'm inviting a professor from Florida International University. We're going to be inviting students from Florida Memorial College, getting over there to pass out some stuff. We're going to be inviting pastors who just really need this information. And we're inviting other people I have invited people that are of the Islamic faith. I want them to get this lesson. I want them to get this lesson that Pastor Bowie is going to bring starting this Sabbath. It's a 5-part series that will be taught every Sabbath at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, 12 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Okay? So you can watch it on this channel, or you can you can download the IOG app. I showed information on that earlier, which you can get from Apple or the Play Store. And you can download it and get it right there on the app, or you can watch it on your phone, your tablet. If you're on your job, you can get it. You can go to the IsraelofGod.com, and there will be a live button. If you have Bethel's app, you can, if you're in this area, you can download that app and just hit it. This information is going to be available to all of you. So, brothers and sisters, share this information with your family members. If you are in a city and there is no Israel of God near you, open up your doors to your family, your friends. Put this on your television. Invite people to come in and say, I'm having a Black History kickoff. Call it whatever you want to call it. Invite them in. People that you want to have this information. Bring out the potato chips, the soda, sandwiches, and just invite people to get this lesson. All right? Get this lesson. So it's going to be very important. I know that this gets out. I reached out today to Ron Dalton. He's the one that made the movie Hebrews to Negroes, and we had a very productive conversation today. And I encourage you, brother, to continue to make videos that specifically deal with our information, opposed to the other side. We don't want to deal with who is not Israel. We don't want to get into that. We don't need to get into that debate. At least in my opinion, we don't need to get into that debate and that feedback. We just need to stick to teaching the information that's in the book and making as many people aware so that you can understand what's going on, because it's in the scriptures. That's why we teach it, because it's in the Bible. It's in the scriptures. It's told by the prophets. Salvation is for every mankind, irregardless of your color. Because Israel had a job, and that was to be a light to the nations. Take this information to be a nation of kings, a kingdom of priests, teachers, to take this and so people would know, so that they can have the right to the tree of life and eternal life. That's what Israel's role was. So tonight I told you that we were going to talk about Black history. We're going to get into some artifacts, and that I think is going to be beneficial to you. And we're going to do so by way of showing you what happened during the Inquisition. A lot of people don't know the things that took place during the Spanish Inquisition. There's a lot of information there that you need to look at that really took place during the Spanish Inquisition. that will actually really kind of blow your mind a little bit, because a lot of people don't know that these things took place. And we want you to get over there and really take a look at as to what actually took place according to the history. Now you can get this information. This information is not hidden. This information is not a secret. It's there. You just have to go look at it. You just have to go read it. And because it is there, brothers and sisters. It is there. I want to share this with you because it's coming up, and it's a promo video for Black History for the entire month that's coming up, and I'll share this with you right now, and I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Moses, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt.
They're not going to believe me or hearken to my voice.
What is it in thine hand? Cast it on the ground. Take it by the tail. Put now thine hand into thy bosom.
Pharaoh, let my people go, that they may hold a feast in the wilderness unto the Lord.
Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I know not the Lord, neither will I let Israel go. Go! Get out of here! And pray for me too.
Aaron, get up before us and go make us God.
This man Moses that brought us up from Egypt, where is he?
Yeah.
We know not where he is.
Okay. Take off your rings of your daughters, your wives, and give them to me.
But it shall come to pass, thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
Black History Told by the Prophets, a 5-part series. Again, brothers and sisters, it will start each Sabbath starting this week. And the first one is color, and you want to tune in to get that. And or you can go to the israelofgod.com. Share this with individuals, brothers and sisters, because this is going to be beautiful. All right, this is going to be beautiful, and it's coming up. So I just wanted to kind of kick that off tonight. Now, here's what's important. The situation with those that are here in America that are going through all the stuff that you see on the news, it's not going to stop. This should let you know that those that are teaching that the 400-year doctrine is right now, that it's America, and that they're supposed to be Exodus out of here. Just, 2018, 2019 to 2020, I went through teaching this, and let me tell you, a lot of people were upset with me that did not understand that the 400 years is not today, that it already happened, what you saw in that video. And that video is just a rendition of what happened in Egypt. And when you come to learn this during these 5-part series, you're going to understand that the 400 years already happened. The next big thing to happen is the abomination of the desolation spoken by the prophet Daniel. And people are going to get mixed up, because when the Exodus don't happen, because it already has, it just makes people frustrated and lose confidence in those that are teaching the doctrine, and then lose confidence in the book. So then they start to go to other books, searching, and they get into something else. Egyptology, Islam, spiritualism, and the list goes on and on and on. But I can tell you, brothers and sisters, somebody said the video did not show. The video did not show you all. The video that I just, maybe it didn't. Did the video show? I thought it did. Y'all let me know if the video, if it didn't show. I thought it did. Did the video show?
Moses.
I'll play it again.
I am the God of thy father, the God of
Here we go.
Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt.
They're not going to believe me or hearken to my voice.
What is it in thine hand? Cast it on the ground. Take it by the tail. Put now thine hand into thy bosom.
Pharaoh, let my people go, that they may hold a feast in the wilderness unto the Lord.
Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I know not the Lord, neither will I let Israel go. Go! Get out of here! And pray for me too.
Some people telling me that they saw the video, and some people say they didn't see the video. So I don't know. The video that I wanted y'all to see is the one that you just saw. So if y'all saw that video, put your thumbs up. It'll help build up our algorithm anyway. But if this video came across, put your thumbs up. That's the video that I'm talking about. I wanted you to see the promo video for the Black History starting this weekend. That was a promo video that I showed you all. So I hope it came across. If you saw that, okay, so the video did come across. It did come across. Okay. So that's the video. I'm going to let it finish playing, and then I'll be right back. All right? And then we can come back. So people say they did see it. Okay, so just in case, let's just continue to play it out. And don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.
And Moses that brought us up from Egypt. Where is he?
Yeah.
We know not where he is.
Okay. Take off your rings of your daughters, your wives, and give them to me.
But it shall come to pass, thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
So there it is. That's Black History Told by the Prophets, 5-part study series starting each Sabbath. And I gave the rest of the information on that, okay? So that's the promo video that I wanted you all to see that's going to be happening. Now, I'm going to be showing another video immediately shortly, so bear with me, because there's another video that we're going to be talking about the Black history, the Spanish Inquisition. But I was sharing with you all, I had a good conversation with Brother Ron Dalton today, and you know, just about the video that really hit national news, and that just to say hello to the brother and give him some words of encouragement, and to really say, you know, Brother Dalton, the videos should really stick to our history opposed to who is not. That's a battle you don't want to face. That's a battle you don't want to face. We just need to teach and show and educate who we are. That's it. Let it. Anybody else has something, they could spend their time doing that. And that was just pretty much the extent of our conversation. But I want to take you back to the fact that when we look at our condition, things are not changing. It's getting worse. So that is evidence enough to know there is no Exodus. And that doctrine cannot be taught. You don't even hear anybody talking about it anymore, as like they did back in 2018, 2019, 2020. You don't hear people talking about it no more because of the fact, brothers and sisters, that it played out. It was a good hype at that time because people were saying 1619, 2019. It played out. And as we all knew, those of us that are in the Israel of God, we knew it was going to play out. We knew that doctrine is going, the fad of it is just going to play out because it's not going to happen. And I had a lot of people mad because they said, as if I could change if it was going to happen. Well, don't say that. People used to say, don't say that. You shouldn't say that. As if me saying that it's not going to happen is going to stop it from happening. No, I didn't stop it from happening. The word don't support it because it already happened. And I bring that up because of what's happening with the young man in Memphis. What's going on all over. What's happening in New Orleans. It's our condition has not gotten any better. We continue to get the short end of the stick. We continue to be number one in all manner of diseases, as the scriptures indicated. As the scriptures said so, brothers and sisters. So you're not surprised and you're not shaken and you're not upset when things don't happen the way people told you that they were going to happen. And they're not going to happen because it doesn't fit the scriptures. All right? So we continue to highlight that because we are an authentic source to bring you the book. Because we're bringing you the book. We're not giving you no opinion. We're not giving you any of that. We're giving you the book. And the book don't lie. All right? So I'm going to give you some information on the what happened during the Spanish Inquisition. Because in those books, it tells you exactly what happened. And the authors, who are Caucasian, refer to us as the Black Jews. And this is something that every family ought to know. So I'm going to start this, and this was put together by my friend, brother Benea, who put this together. And I hats off to him for the work that he's done and the time that he's put into this work. And I'm going to share it with you tonight. And I want you to look at it, and I want you to enjoy what you're about to get tonight. And then after which, we'll be back tomorrow night to even give you more stuff that will enlighten you. So I want you to enjoy this, because you will certainly be enlightened of the material that comes from academic sources. Academic sources, books that you can go find and research. And they have been written. They were written by Caucasians. And they documented in their books and referred to us as the Black Jews. Now these books are not going to find themselves into the United States, but they're in Europe. Some of them that Brother Beneo will bring out will be in the United States, or at least they will be accessible in the United States. Shout out to Brother JD. So I want you to take a look at this film, sit back, and enjoy the history and the information that's going to come forth. Stand by.
Shalom, family. This is Benea Ben Israel, bringing you a presentation on Black history. The name of this presentation is Black History, the Inquisition. That's Black History, the Inquisition. Now, you may be surprised to know, or you may be wondering, why would we associate the Inquisition with Black history? Well, believe it or not, the Inquisition has had a great impact on Black history. And so what I'm going to do in this presentation, we're going to try to keep it short and sweet. I'm only going to review 8 references. So in this presentation, the wish is that you don't hear my words, but you hear the references of the authors that were around 100 or so years ago. So with these references, I don't like to use references that are from the 1900s or newer. So basically, whenever you open up a book and you see that that publication date in there, I like to use publication dates, or books with publication dates of like the 1800s or older, because those books tend to have a lot of truth in them. So let's go ahead and get started. Don't want to delay too long. So what we'll do is we're going to do a couple of things. One is we'll just read just a few references as to the color of the Jews, and then we'll get rolling into the other references. I do have some follow-up presentations on the color of the Jews. I may put 20 or so references together just to kind of put the nail in the coffin as far as that conversation is concerned. But for this presentation, we're only going to do 3. And hopefully these are 3 references that you haven't seen before. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm in a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to exit out of that and just take you to one of the first references. So this reference comes from a book called The Negro in the New World by Sir Harry Johnston. And for some of these, I may not read out the reference there, but you will be able to see it on the screen. And if you want to see if you can find these references yourself, feel free to pause and write that information down, and then you can kind of proceed. So this one comes from, again, Negro in the New World. And we're going to go to page 27. And again, the point of this reference is just to establish the color of the Jews. So we're going to look at the color of the Jews. All right, my screen's a bit choppy here, so just bear with me. Takes a while for my screen to redraw because I have a lot of things running in the background. So we'll get there soon enough. All right, almost there, just a couple of pages away. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom in because on this page in particular, we want to go to page 27, and then we want it to scroll all the way to the bottom, and we're going to read the footnote on this page. So I'm going to go into, let's see if I can zoom into 135%. And then I'm going to scroll over here. So hang on. All right, almost there. All right, I'm going to read this one twice just so that you understand what we're reading. All right, so this footnote, it's at the very bottom, and you can follow along while we read, but while I read, but it basically says the Jews are composed of 3 or 4 separate racial elements. The Asiatic Negroid strain shows itself occasionally in the curly hair, the long eye, and proportions of the skull. The Jewish hybrids with the Negro in Jamaica, and I know I'm going to mess up this name, but we're going to look at it, Guana, reproduce most strikingly the Assyrian type. All right, let me read that again. The Jews are composed of 3 or 4 separate racial elements. The Asiatic Negroid strain shows itself occasionally in the curly hair, the long eye, and the proportions of the skull. The Jewish hybrids with the Negro in Jamaica and Ghana reproduce most strikingly the Assyrian type. All right. So this kind of just gets us started in linking the Negroes, or the so-called African Americans, to being the Jews. So let's take another look at another reference. Now for this one, I'm going to go to my web browser, because some of these references I have digital copies, and some of them are hard copies. Some of the books are hard to get to. They're rare books. They cost upwards of I've seen some of these books at around $50,000. Actually, 58 was the highest I've seen them, or $11,000. So don't be surprised if you go out there and you try to find them and you see some just crazy prices associated with these references. And that has to do with they're just the powers to be just kind of want to keep some of these books out of mainstream. But actually that works in our advantage, because folks like me that like to do research, when we go to these websites for books on like things like Africa or Jews or stuff like that, basically what I do, just to kind of give you some insight, I will go to these websites, and then I'll perform the search, and then I'll sort the search by price, and I'll put the most expensive books at the top, and the cheapest ones at the bottom. And usually the ones that are the expensive books that show up at the top are the ones that aren't meant for mainstream. Like, those are the ones that have the big price tags that whoever, is out there, they don't want that to fall into the hands of people that are doing research. So, but again, that works in our advantage. All right, so for our next one, let's see here. Oh, okay, all right. So this was called On the Classification and Geographical Distribution of Mammalia. All right, so I'm on for this one, we're going to page 96, but I will, let me go back to the front of the book so that you can see the actual cover of this book here. All right, so kind of zoomed in, but you can see the title there. So that's the title, and that's the author of this book. So I'm going to jump to page 96. And there's page 96. It's on the left. And let's look for our reference. All right, so Now on this one, and then let me zoom in on this one as well. There we go. All right. Now, the reference that we're looking for in this one is the last paragraph on this page. And let's see here. I may just start midway here where it says 4. But yeah, well, I guess we can read the whole thing. It says, with reference to the characteristic of color, which are extreme, we have now opportunities of knowing how much that character is the result of the influence of climate. So back in the day, they used to think that climate would have decide whether or not you were black or white, but that's just the way it was. It says, we know it more particularly by the most valuable mode of testing such influences which we derive from the peculiarity of the Jewish race. It says, for 1,800 years, that race has been dispersed in different latitudes and climates, and they have preserved themselves distinct from intermixture with other races of mankind. It says, there are some Jews still lingering in the valleys of the Jordan, having been oppressed by and let me move over to the other page, top of the page here. Successive conquerors of Syria for ages, a low race of people, and described by trustworthy travelers as being as black as any of the Ethiopian races. Let me read that one again. And I'm just going to start up here where it says, a low race of people, and described by trustworthy travelers as being as black as any of the Ethiopian races. Just for context, I'm going to keep reading. It says, others of the Jewish people participating in European civilization and dwelling in the northern nations show instances. You know what an instance, if you're black but you have instances of white, you know, that's, you have, those are considered exceptions. But let me start again here. It says, others of the Jewish people participating in European civilization and dwelling in the northern nations show instances of the light complexion, the blue eyes, and the light hair of the Scandinavian families. So I'm just going to stop there. It goes into, you know, climate and stuff like that. But it does, well, actually, there's a little negative information here at the end where it says the condition of the Hebrews since their dispersion has not been such as to admit much admixture by the proselytism of household slaves. We are thus led to account for the differences in color by the influence of climate without having to refer them to original or specific distinctions. In other words, without having to say which ones are original and which ones are, you know, are the add-ons, so to speak, or the proselytes. But I have a couple of references that should help clear that up too. So let's take a look. All right, so you got that one. That's our second reference. So for the third reference, this is also one that you can find on the web. Hopefully you can see it on the screen. It's the Christian Researches in Asia by Claudius Buchanan. And so you should be able to see that on the left-hand screen. If not, let me see if I can zoom in here. Actually, so I'm on page, for this one, the references is on page 205, and I'm going to scroll up to the front page so that you can see the book. All right, so see the title. All right, so that's the title. I'm going to scroll down and see if you can get the author. All right, that's the author, the Reverend Claudius Buchanan. And again, let's look at that publication date. You see it? 1811. So this is a book that was around 1811. And the other two books were also written in the 1800s too. I forgot to show that. All right, so I'm going to go down to, let's see, so we're at page 205. Let me see if I can find my place again. Let's see, 164. Hang on, guys. 192. All right, getting close. And, all right, there it is. All right, 205. All right. So what's so special about this this quote? Well, let's go to page 205, and then we'll scroll down to halfway down the page to Black Jews. Black Jews. All right, I'm going to read quite a bit of this. I think. Well, I think this is only a page here. I have some notes here off the side, but let's get started. If we have to stop, we can stop. All right, so Black Jews, it says, it is only necessary to look at the countenance of the Black Jews to be satisfied that their ancestors must have arrived in India many ages before the white Jews. I think I need to read that one again. All right. It is only necessary to look at the countenance of the Black Jews to be satisfied that their ancestors must have arrived in India many ages before the white Jews. Now, if you're familiar with history with John Hyrcanus and the conversion of the Edomites, that will help shed some light on the differences between the white Jews and the Black Jews, that sort of thing, because during the forget the date. It's like 160 something BC. The Jews forcefully they converted the Edomites over to Jews, and from that point forward, according to Josephus, the Edomite Jews were also considered Jews. So that's why whenever you're researching these books, you'll see two classes of Jews. You'll see, white Jews, or sometimes they're called red Jews, and then you have Black Jews. So the Black Jews are considered the ancient Jews, and the red Jews are either the proselytes or the new Jews. So let's keep going. I'm gonna start back at the top here. I'll try to leave the commentary at a minimum, but just want you to know why certain things say what it says. So anyway, Black Jews. It is only necessary to look at the countenance of the Black Jews to be satisfied that their ancestors must have arrived in India many ages before the white Jews. Their Hindu complexion and their very imperfect resemblance to the European Jews, so notice it says the European Jews, indicate that they have been detached from the parent stock in Judea many ages before the Jews in the West, and that there have been intermarriages with families not Israelitish. I had heard that those tribes which had passed in Indus have assimilated so much that the customs and habits of the countries in which they live, that they may be sometimes seen by a traveler without being recognized as Jews. In the interior towns of Malabar, I was not always able to distinguish between the Jew from the Hindu. I hence perceived how easy it may be to mistake the tribes of Jewish descent among the Afghans and other nations in the southern parts of Hindustan. The white Jews look upon the Black Jews as an inferior race and as not of a pure caste, which plainly demonstrates that they do not spring from a common stock in in India. Let me just scroll down here. I think there's one or two interesting lines out of this. All right. Yeah, we'll leave that one be for now. So the main part there is that there's some discussion about the Black Jews. Of course, there's some discourse between the Black Jews and the white Jews, but the Black Jews are considered like the ancient Jews. They have been there longer, and that's kind of called out in the text here as well. Okay, all right. So that's that. So I did want to just kind of pull out those three references that kind of speaks to the color of the Jews. And for our next reference, we're going to move into or get into the Inquisition. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint slide. We're going to jump to slide 3. And so as far as the Inquisition, if you're familiar with the transatlantic slave trade, one of the things that I like to make sure that people are aware of is that the part that the Pope at the time had played in slavery. So for this, I'm just going to zoom in here and just read a quick reference. This is from a book called Historical Survey of the Island of St. Domingo. And this comes from off of page 220. And it reads, "A curious circumstance was, however, omitted. When the Portuguese first began the traffic in Negroes, application was made to the Pope to sanctify the trade by a bull, which His Holiness issued accordingly. In consequence of this permission and authority, a very considerable slave market was started at Lisbon, insomuch about the year 1539, from 10 to 12,000 Negroes were sold there annually." So basically, the papal bull that the Pope signed kicked off slavery in that region, or kicked off the transatlantic slave trade. And so what I want to do is just go over to the third slide here. Let's see, and we'll read just a quick blurb about the Inquisition in Spain and Portugal, just to give you an idea of what was happening in Spain at the time. So let's read this. This comes from you can see the book there. It's by Frederick David Mocata. It's the book, The Jews of Spain and Portugal and the Inquisition, page 57. And I'm going to read it. The first paragraph here. It says, "Unfortunately, at the time of the expulsion, the plague was raging in Castile." So in Portugal, and just a quick note here. So what's happening is that the Jews in Portugal were told to get out. It said that you guys got to leave. And so throughout Europe, there were a bunch of what we refer to as expulsion edicts, declarations to, for the Jews, these black Jews to get out. So this is kind of where this reference picks up. But I'm reading this reference to set up the next one. So let's go ahead and read this one. It says, "Unfortunately, at the time of the expulsion, the plague was raging in Castile, and the fugitives brought with them the disease, propagating it wherever they went, and not unnaturally causing their advent to be viewed with loathing and horror." Break here. All right, so what's happening is that the Jews, the plague was raging in Castile. So, of course, the name of the plague associated with the Jews is called what? The Black Death, again. And, people didn't want the Jews around because they were the plague was spreading, through the Jews. And that's foretold in the Bible that that those plagues would cleave to the Jews and follow the Jews. So as we read here, it says, "This circumstance induced King John, excuse me, induced King John," take a sip of my tea here. All right. "This circumstance induced King John to hasten their departure from Portugal, for which purpose ships were duly provided." So the king said, "Get out, and I'll provide you some ships to get out." But then some shady stuff went down with the ships too, but it's not covered in this one. And keep reading. It says, "This circumstance induced King John to hasten their departure from Portugal, for which purpose ships were duly provided, according to the agreement. But such was the temper of the captains and the sailors that they subjected the Jews to the hardest possible conditions. They plundered them of their goods and valuables, even to their very clothes, taking the shirts off their back, basically. And landed them naked and bare of everything on barren points of the African coast. So they took out everything they had, everything they owned, and left them stranded on the African coast. And then it says, leaving them to die of starvation or to be sold into slavery to the Moors. Nor was this all. The king, and that's King John, wrested from their parents all the children between the ages of 3 and 10. And just to pause here, it says it's 10 in this reference. In other references, you'll see that the king at that time changed it. He increased it to I believe it was like 3 and 16. We'll actually read it here shortly, if I remember. And then later he increased it to include the Jewish children or young adults in the 20s. So it was basically all the young folks. All right, so back to the reference. It says, nor was this all. The king wrested from their parents all the children between the ages of 3 and 10 of those Jewish immigrants who from poverty or otherwise had omitted to pay the capitation tax on entry. So when the Jews came into Portugal, they charged them a tax. Think of it as a toll booth. So as the Jews were coming in, they put that toll booth down. They said, you guys got to pay me. And if you can't pay me, I'm taking your kids. And it says, and so the ones that they couldn't pay the capitation tax, they had their children taken away from them. It says, or the ones that were forced to remain in Portugal, because when King John gave that declaration for the Jews to get out, he said set a date that if they didn't get out by that time, that they would be arrested or enslaved. And let's see what happened to them. So the ones that had omitted to pay the capitation tax on entering, or those who were forced to remain in Portugal, and they had them transported, they had them sent to the newly discovered islands of St. Thomas. So he took the Jews to St. Thomas, which then swarmed with alligators and other beasts of prey, to be brought up as Christians. And so just keep in mind that with this reference, so this reference tells us that the children of the Jews and the Jew, we know that there were women and men in there as well, but for the most part, they were the children that were taken from the Jews in Portugal and Spain, and that they were sent, according to this particular reference, they were sent to St. Thomas. But we have some other references that'll show you exactly where they were sent in addition to St. Thomas, which is on the west coast of Africa. All right, so we're going to exit out of this presentation. So now we've learned that during the time of the Inquisition, and this was just one of the expulsion edicts, that the Jews were sent to the west coast of Africa, in particular St. Thomas Island. All right, so for our next reference, now this is what I call a high value reference, and the reason why I call it that is because of the time period that this reference comes from and the person who it comes from. So this particular reference comes from a author called John Ogilvie, and I'm going to see if I can get to the title screen so you can see the author and the title. About John Ogilvie, he was the cosmographer and printer to the king, and I believe it was King Charles II. So John Ogilvie would be a person of interest. We would want to know what John Ogilvie would have to say, because he would be someone that would have the ear of the king at the time. And we know that that London that they played a major role in the transatlantic slave trade. So for this one, for this reference, I believe the reference for this guy is way back. There's actually some really good material in here, but we're going to go to one that's all the way in the back of the book. So if you can, let me zoom in just so that you can see the title if you can't already see it. So let me do that first. And my screen's still rendering. All right. So this is the book that we're going to take a look at. This too is one of those rare books that is hard to get a hold of. There used to be digital copies out there floating on archive.org, but they pulled those copies. So you have to kind of poke around to see if you can get it. Yeah, I will, and I'll put some links out there for them. But let me zoom back out, and I'm going to go over to page. Let's see here. We're going to do page, I believe it's 575. And let's see if it renders. All right. Yep. So actually, page 574. I think that's the interesting paragraph. So on page 574, this is just kind of give you some background. This is talking about King John again. So this is about King John. This is about discussing Portugal and west coast of Africa, and the people that were there. So this interesting gives a really good description as to who's on the west coast of Africa and who put them there. I'll say that again. This reference is a good reference that shows us who's on the west coast of Africa and who put them there. So halfway down on the page, and it's one of those books like if you can get your hands on a digital copy, feel free to read the whole thing for context. But these couple of paragraphs pretty much sum up the whole west coast of Africa. And it says, the Portuguese that dwelt on this island, that's St. Thomas, informed the Netherlanders, the Dutch, that few lived above 50 years there. Yet, notwithstanding the great gain tempted them to tarry. So there was money to be had. So, the Netherlanders wanted to go anyway. So, but the Portuguese kind of warned us. They told them that, on this island, we don't live long. And basically, the Europeans didn't live long in Africa when they went there at the time because of the weather and the plagues and all that stuff. So let's read it again. It says, the Portuguese that dwelt on this island informed the Netherlanders that few lived there above 50 years there. Yet, notwithstanding the great gain, tempted them to tarry. So there's money to be had. It says, several of them having 200 or 300 Negroes that worked in the sugar mills. And we have a semicolon, and it says, it's going to explain it. It says that John III, King of Portugal, that we just read about, right, sent a colony thither above 200 years before. So 200 years before the writing of this book. This book was written in 1670, I think. So 200 years before that book, King John, who was around in the 1400s, he sent a colony there, whom though the unwholesome air destroyed. So the first colony that he sent there, it killed him. It said, yet the place was not left desolate, so they did not all die. It said, for he sent new inhabitants who first settled Guinea. Now, if you have a map of Guinea, Guinea is the west coast of Africa, right? So these people, so the king sent new inhabitants who first settled Guinea, and this is in the 1400s. Next, in Angola, if you're familiar with the continent of Africa, Angola is just below Nigeria. You got Congo, then you got Nigeria, so that whole area. And lastly, on the island of St. Thomas. So remember, we read about St. Thomas on our previous reference. If you don't remember, just feel free to back up the presentation. But I'm going to read it again without stopping here. Hang on. All right. That John III, King of Portugal, sent a colony thither above 200 years before, whom the unwholesome air destroyed. Yet the place was not left desolate. For he sent new inhabitants, who first settled Guinea, next in Angola, and lastly on the island of St. Thomas. So this tells us that the King John sent a colony to those three places, which was the west coast of Africa. And let's read what John Ogilvy has to say about it. So he says, let's see, for he sent new inhabitants who first settled Guinea, next in Angola, and lastly on the island of St. Thomas, that so they might be better used to the air, that the said king sold all those Jews for slaves. Let me repeat. So, King John is, the king of Portugal, and we read I think it was either 2 or 3 references back that, the king of Portugal petitioned the Pope for slavery, right? So the Pope issued that papal bull, authorized it, things kicked off. And you may be wondering, why would a Pope authorize the Negro slave trade? Well, it looks like we have our answer here. So if we read this again, it says, I'm just going to back up a little bit just so that we get the proper context. It says that John III, King of Portugal, sent a colony thither above 200 years before. So back in the 1400s, whom though the unwholesome air destroyed, yet the place was not left desolate, for he sent new inhabitants who first settled in Guinea, next in Angola, and lastly on the island of St. Thomas, West Africa. So that so they might be better used to the air, that the said king sold all those Jews for slaves, that refused to embrace the Roman religion. Let me read that again. That the said king sold all those Jews for slaves that refused to embrace the Roman religion. So now you know why the Pope at the time authorized the transatlantic slave trade. But let's keep reading. And caused their children to be baptized. And we read about the children in the previous reference. And caused their children to be baptized, from whom, coming thither to that place, the west coast of Africa, in great numbers. You got to read this one slow. It says, coming thither in great numbers. Then it says, most of the present inhabitants were descended. Let me read that one again. It says, from whom, coming thither in great numbers, west coast of Africa, the Jews coming there in great numbers, who were, according to this, were sold as slaves. He said most of the present inhabitants there were descended. So now you can understand why this book wouldn't be out there on mainstream, right? Because this reference is pretty damaging. There's some other text in this book as well, but that's pretty much your transatlantic slave trade in a nutshell. But we're not done. But wait, there's more. All right, so we're going to leave this reference and go over to our next reference because we want to get some more understanding about the transatlantic slave trade. And now, reading this this reference, now we know that there were Jews on the west coast of Africa, and we also know who put them there, and we know who sold them as slaves. And we know that Portugal was one of the first countries to participate in the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, all right. So for this next next reference, this is also a reference from John Ogilvy, but this book is called Africa, being an accurate description of the regions. So I have it up on the screen. I'm going to zoom in just so that you can see the title. And this too is a digital copy. And I'm going to zoom back out so that I can navigate the pages. And I believe there's a couple of pages of interest in here, but the one that I want is 34. We got a graphic there. Let me just keep going. There it is. All right. So page 34. All right. So page 34. I'm just going to start at the top of page 34 and read down. And this book confirms who are on the west coast of Africa. Okay? All right. It reads, many Jews also are scattered over this region. Some natives, boasting themselves of Abraham's seed, inhabiting both sides of the river Niger. Now, you may be looking at the screen and wondering why I'm not pronouncing that Niger. That's because back in the day, it wasn't called Niger. That's a relatively modern pronunciation of it. It was actually called nigger. And that's where the word nigger, the derogatory term, comes from in the States. And that's because of the slaves that were gathered from the river Niger Delta. So this tells us who the niggers are, according to the people around during that time. So let's read. It says, let me start again. It says, many Jews also are scattered over this region. So there's not a whole lot of interpretation that we need around that. So we know a lot of Jews were scattered over this region. It says, some natives boasting themselves of Abraham's seed, inhabiting both sides of the river Niger. Others are Asian strangers who fled thither either from the desolation of Jerusalem by Vespasian, or from Judea, wasted and depopulated by the Romans, Persians, Saracens, and Christians. So basically, all the Jews fled from these different places and came to the west coast of Africa, is what John Ogilvy is writing here. Who, let me just remind you, he's the cosmographer and geographic printer of the king. So this isn't just some guy, right? This is what we refer to as a high value reference. All right. Or else such as came out of Europe. And I need to read that again. Or else such as came out of Europe, whence they were banished. Because what a lot of people don't know is that the Jews were banished out of the European countries. So all this talk about the Jews going up and living happily in Europe, that's kind of a half truth. Maybe for the Edomite Jews they could pull that off, but for the real Jews were banished out of Europe. All right, so it or else such came out of Europe, whence they were banished, out of some parts of Italy in 1342, out of Spain in the year 1462, out of the Low Countries in 1350, out of France in 1403, out of England in 1422. These all differ in habit and are divided into several tribes, having no dominion, though both wealthy and numerous. So let me just stop here, just to kind of review what we've read so far. So this quote tells us that many Jews were on the west coast of Africa. They were in the Niger River region, and also that the Jews that were in the west coast of Africa were not only just the ones that were placed there by the Portuguese, but they were also the Jews that fled from all these various places, like from Jerusalem, from the Romans, from the Persians, from the Christians, and so forth. So this is kind of like a gathering place for the Jews, so to speak. All right. Let's keep reading. It says, these all differ in habit and are divided into several tribes, having no dominion, though both wealthy and numerous, but despised of all nations, and so abominated by the Turks that they are not admitted to be Mohammedans, unless first baptized, and then no otherwise made use of than to receive their customs and to gather their taxes. So basically it's just saying that that these Jews were despised out of all the nations. And here they were sitting on the west coast of Africa. And the Mohammedans, used them just to gather their taxes, but the European nations sent them into slavery, according to John Ogilvy. Okay, all right, so we got that. Let me see if there's another reference we want to share. All right, so we read this quote here. The Jews of Spain and Portugal. And this one, when we read this one, we read that the King of Portugal expelled the Jews from his country, took the children away, and this quote says that he took them to St. Thomas Island. John Ogilvy then goes on to say that they not only took the Jews to St. Thomas, but they took them to Guinea and Angola as well. And this next quote comes from, let's see, you can see the book. There's Portuguese exploration to the west and the formation of Brazil. But this is another high value reference. So this reference comes from, and I'm going to butcher his name, but it's Garcia de Resende. And this guy is the official chronicler of King John. All right, so he's the chronicler of the king. So let's see if Garcia de Resende says anything different than what John Ogilvy, who's the cosmographer of the king. So it's going to read a little down from the top here. It says, by the year 1470, the Portuguese had found the equatorial islands of St. Thomas in the Guinean coast, off the African coast. The climate proved to be extremely unwholesome for Europeans, and settlement was slow. So basically, he's affirming what we read in some of our other references, which just said that the Europeans didn't live long when they went to the west coast of Africa. It goes on to say the official chronicler of King John, it's John right there, Garcia de Resende, reports on one of the methods to populate this island that also throws some light on the tragic form of Jewish participation in the Portuguese Atlantic Empire. It says the king had allowed Jewish refugees from Spain from where they had been expelled. Let me read that again. It says the king had allowed Jewish refugees from Spain from where they had been expelled to remain in Portugal only in return for payment of an enormous ransom. We read that in a different reference as well. It says in 1493, those who could not pay had their children taken away from them, baptized by force, and deported to St. Thomas in order to be raised as Christians and to help populate the island that the king had just leased. And I'm just going to skip to the last sentence here, and it says, nothing is known of their further fate, although later chroniclers attribute the thriving sugar production on the island to the talents of these deported children and their offspring. So this one, this reference tells us that the Portuguese sent the children, took the children away from the Jews, baptized them by force, and put them into slavery. Basically, is what it's saying. All right, and this is just another, just a side note here, just to kind of show you that the a description of the Portuguese community. So the very last sentence on this page, I don't have a page number. I'll try to get you that page. I'll get you that page number, and it says, the documents also describe the evolution of the black Portuguese communities in Guinea and the islands, as well as the slave trade and the way it was organized, understood, and justified. So just wanted to call this out to show you that the communities were black communities. All right. Hopefully you can see the name of this book. This is another digital book. You can see it on the left. As you can see, it's a free book on Google Books. And this quote comes from page 218. I'll give you a chance to take a look at that. Now, this particular reference speaks to those that were convicted by the Inquisition. This is referring to the west coast of Africa. And if you start at the top of the page, kind of cut off some of that, but if you start at the top of the page, you'll see it's referring to the west coast of Africa. And there's a footnote at the bottom of the page to show you the countries that it's referring to on the west coast of Africa. But I'll read here the last couple of sentences at the bottom. It says, moreover, in Spain, they but seldom put their malefactors, the word malefactors means criminals. So I'll read that and just kind of substitute malefactors. It says, moreover, in Spain, they but seldom put their criminals to death, as we do in France. They send them all to these desert countries to traffic there. So the word traffic means slavery. So they send them all to these desert countries. What desert countries? Well, you can see the countries listed in the footnote at the bottom. This is basically the Congo, Angola, basically the west coast of Africa. So what this reference tells us is that Spain was sending their criminals, their so-called criminals, their Jews, to the west coast of Africa for slaves. All right. And interesting tidbit about the Inquisition. So the actual book of the Inquisition that contained like the bylaws and stuff like that, that book had many nicknames. But one of the nicknames was called the Libro Negro. And that's the book of the Inquisition. It was sometimes called the Libro Negro, or you can see the Libro Necro, the book of the dead. But the Libro Negro is a name for the official book of the Inquisition. And within that book, it showed the crimes and how to conduct the trials and also the sentences. And this is just one of those books that are out there on Amazon, just to show you that it's called the El Libro Negro de la Inquisición, the Black Book of the Inquisition. And this is just another cross reference from St. John of the Cross. It just reads, thus the Libro Negro, in which were recorded the acts of the chapters and definitiaries, vanished except for a few extracts. So just saying that the Libro Negro disappeared after a while. It's kind of hard to find. All right, I'm going to skip that one, that reference. Okay, all right, so I'm going to back
region.
Up. So in the Libro Negro, and actually let me exit out of here and go over to a web browser because I think I have a better view. of this. Hopefully you can see this in your screen. But the name of this book is A Narrative of the Persecution of Hipólito Joseph de Costa, Volume 2. And within this book, it defines some of the sentences that were given out as part of the Inquisition. Like, so basically what the Inquisition was, you had the I call them like the secret police for the Jews that didn't want to embrace the Roman version of Christianity. They would be arrested, and then by the Inquisition officers, and they would be tortured, and they would try to wrestle a confession from them, and then either burn them at the stake, or they would ship them off somewhere. So the purpose of this reference is to tell us where the those that were convicted by the Inquisition. We want to use this reference to tell us where the convicted Jews were sent. So what I just did a quick search here, and it's just to show you the places. So we're just going to run through them really quick, but it says, and she shall be, and this is just kind of reading off the punishments, and she shall be sent to the galleys. And if a female, she shall be exiled to the island of Principe, West Africa, St. Thomas, West Africa, or Angola. And this one is, we kind of catch this one mid-sentence here, but it says, shall be condemned to the same punishment of whipping, and shall be exiled for the same period to the kingdom of Angola or some parts of Brazil. I think this one's mid-sentence too. Let's see, it says, and shall be sent to the galleys or exiled to St. Thomas or Angola. And this one's another one, exiled to the island of Principe, St. Thomas, or Angola, West Africa. Shall be exiled for as many years to Brazil or Angola, and shall be exiled to St. Thomas, Angola, or Brazil. And there's a few more here, and it's pretty much the same thing. You'll see St. Thomas, Angola, or Brazil for a lot of these. So basically, what the Inquisition was doing was that it was sending those Jews that were convicted. It was sending them to the west coast of Africa. So I think we'll stop there for now, and we'll pick this up in another video. But this is we'll end this video. We'll call it part 1, and this is Black History, the Inquisition. Black History, the Inquisition, and hopefully with some of these references, you can begin to see how the Inquisition had a direct impact, mostly, on the so-called African American, which are the true Hebrews, or the true children of Judah, from the house of Judah. So thank you for watching. There will be another video to come. I do have another video coming up on the color of the Jews to kind of put that whole conversation to bed as far as what the Jews look like. We'll kind of ramp up the references on that one, just so that we can kind of squash all the back and forth as far as the color of the Jews. I just want to make sure we leave no question by the time that video ends. So thank you again for watching, and feel free to continue your research, and by all means make these references your own. And with that said, shalom.